If you think you already know the real story of how the United States became the nation it is today, you're wrong. Because hidden beneath the famous battles, the celebrated speeches, and the textbook heroes is a stranger, older, almost unbelievable chain of events. Events stitched together by one man whose name has been erased from nearly every historical document. Until now. His name was Elias Granger, and if you search the libraries of Washington, the archives of Boston, or the vaults of Philadelphia, you will not find him. Yet he walked beside the architects of America, whispered into the decisions that shaped the Revolution, uncovered secrets in the wilderness that presidents would later kill to possess, and vanished into the storm of history, taking with him the most astonishing truth about the birth of the nation. Our story begins not in the halls of power or on a battlefield, but in the winter of 1749, deep inside a forest so silent and untouched that even native tribes called it the land that remembers itself. Snow lay thick on the pines, moonlight spilled across frozen earth, and in a lonely wooden cabin lit by a single oil lamp, a young Elias Granger bent over a journal that would become the one surviving record of his impossible life. He wrote, "If the land survives, let the truth survive with it. Let those who come after know that America is built not on chance, nor glory, but on something far older and far more dangerous." Elias was 22, orphaned, half-trained as a surveyor, gifted with an unnatural memory that allowed him to recall every face, map, conversation, and symbol he had ever encountered. But memory was not his only gift. He could sense patterns in the land, in people, in history before it even unfolded. He saw connections where others saw coincidence, threads of cause and effect woven through time like markings on an invisible map. And it was this ability, more than any ambition, that drew him into the hidden core of early American history. By 1750, the colonies were restless. Britain tightened control. France expanded in the west. Native alliances shifted like storm winds. Smugglers, rebels, spies, priests, soldiers, everyone seemed to be preparing for a conflict not yet named. Elias believed something else was stirring, something beneath the conflict, something older than any empire. He wasn't wrong. One night, while surveying uncharted land near the forks of the Ohio River, Elias discovered a structure buried beneath layers of earth. It was not French, not British, not native. It was a chamber, circular, stone-lined, impossibly ancient. Torches carved into the walls, symbols he had never seen before, yet felt he somehow recognized. And in the center, a flat stone slab engraved with a map of North America, but not as it was, as it would be. Cities that did not yet exist, borders not yet drawn, rivers that had not yet been redirected by human hands. He traced the coastline with trembling fingers and whispered, "Someone knew. Someone knew everything." Within hours of finding the chamber, Elias was captured, ambushed by French scouts, and delivered to a man cloaked in black wool, speaking English with a faint accent. "Do you understand what you have seen?" the stranger asked. Elias shook his head, though he did understand, too well. The stranger smiled. "Good," he said. "It means you might still be useful to us." The man's name was Sebastian Devereux, though Elias wouldn't learn it until years later. He belonged to an organization that did not officially exist, The Consortium of the 13, a secret alliance of scholars, spies, merchants, and war strategists spanning multiple nations, dedicated to shaping the political future of North America long before the first musket fired in the Revolution. Their goal was not freedom. Their goal was control. Elias escaped them once, barely. He fled through the forests, guided by shadows and instinct, until he reached a trading post near the Allegheny. There, fate placed him in the path of a young, ambitious Virginian officer on his first major assignment. His name was George Washington. Washington saw potential in Elias, sharp intelligence, unusual calm, and a mapmaker's mind. He recruited him instantly, never suspecting what Elias had uncovered in the earth beneath the Ohio. For years, Elias served beside Washington, not as a soldier, but as a silent observer, advisor, and scout. He predicted French movements no one else could see. He deciphered coded communications. He found safe paths through territories no European dared to enter. And as Washington rose step by step into the orbit of destiny, he came to rely on Elias in ways that history never recorded. It was Elias who warned Washington of the ambush at Fort Necessity. Elias who discovered the French emissary carrying plans for a secret invasion route through the Alleghenies. Elias who saved Washington's life during the Battle of the Monongahela by dragging him into the underbrush seconds before the volleys began. And yet, Elias remained invisible, by choice and by the will of forces that preferred him unseen. But the chamber haunted him. Its symbols whispered in his mind as if urging him toward a future he wasn't ready to face. Over the years, he returned to it multiple times, each visit revealing new markings that seemed to emerge from the stone itself, as though history was writing itself in real time. By 1765, the colonies trembled under new taxes and new laws. Protests ignited. Sons of Liberty gathered in secret. Pamphlets circulated in secret. And one storm-filled night in Boston, Elias encountered a man whose name would one day be synonymous with American independence: Samuel Adams. But the Samuel Adams Elias met wasn't the firebrand from the history books. He was older, more calculating, shaped by a personal loss rarely mentioned in public records. Adams didn't trust easily. Yet, when Elias predicted the exact date and location of a British crackdown, Adams realized this stranger was far more valuable than any rebel he had ever met. "You see the pattern beneath the pattern," Adams once said to him. "History needs men like you, men who can read the tide before the wave forms." But not everyone agreed. As revolution fermented in secret taverns and crowded wharves, the Consortium of the 13 resurfaced. They wanted America to break free from Britain, yes, but under their design, with their chosen leaders, their financial control, their blueprint for a new empire. Elias threatened all of it. They began to hunt him. He was ambushed outside Concord by masked riders. Poison slipped into his drink in Philadelphia. An assassin followed him through the alleys of New York, blades gleaming beneath lantern light. Each time, Elias survived, not through strength, but through foresight, instinct, and occasionally sheer luck. But in 1774, everything changed. He met Abigail, a schoolteacher from Newport with a mind as sharp as his own and a fearlessness that shattered every barrier of her time. She uncovered Elias's hidden journal, read the strange symbols he had sketched from the chamber, and told him something that made his heart stop. "I've seen these before." Her grandfather, a sailor, had found similar markings on an island off the coast of Rhode Island decades earlier, carved into stone, half buried at low tide, and one of the symbols was an identical match to the sigil Elias had seen shimmering faintly on the chamber wall. Elias realized then that he and the chamber were not accidents of exploration. They were part of a much older, much larger structure, one scattered across America, hidden in forests, shores, mountains, and riverbeds, a network older than Spain, older than England, older than any known civilization. Elias and Abigail spent months investigating. They found artifacts in Delaware marshes, inscriptions near the Hudson, buried markers in the Carolinas. When Elias Granger vanished in 1790, America had barely taken its first uncertain steps as a new nation. The Constitution was only 2 years old. George Washington was still president, wandering sleepless through the halls of the unfinished presidential mansion. The young republic trembled under debt, foreign threats, internal rebellion, and wounds from a revolution that was not yet healed. But the most dangerous wound was the one only Elias had seen, the fracture on the map beneath the earth. For years the chamber remained silent, no warmth in the stone, no shifting symbols, no whispers of future wars. Until a cold autumn evening in 1793. A young surveyor named Jonathan Hale, barely 19, accidentally rediscovered the chamber while searching for mineral deposits in the Ohio Valley. Unlike Elias, Jonathan had no training, no instincts, no sense of danger. He entered the chamber with the naive excitement of youth, thinking he had stumbled upon an ancient native burial site. But what he saw didn't belong to any known culture. The walls shimmered faintly. The torches carved in stone seemed almost alive. The map at the center glowed faintly, as though the stone were breathing. And the fracture Elias had recorded? It was bigger, darker, spreading like a storm across the heart of the continent. Jonathan didn't understand any of it, but he knew one thing: this chamber was not meant to be found. He fled, carrying with him only one object he had grabbed in panic: a small stone disc with concentric rings carved around a single symbol, a symbol resembling an eagle with wings dividing into cracks. 3 months later, Jonathan Hale was dead. His body was found near the Ohio River, face down, no wounds, no evidence of struggle, but his eyes were wide open as if he had seen something too terrible for the human mind to hold. The stone disc was gone. Jonathan had become the chamber's second known victim, and his death awakened an old, dangerous interest. The Consortium of the 13 resurfaced. After losing Elias Granger, they had retreated into the shadows, infiltrating merchant guilds, shadow banking networks, secret political clubs in New York, Philadelphia, and Charleston. They believed America's future was too unpredictable, too unstable, without their guiding hand. Jonathan's death confirmed what they feared. The old network beneath America was active again. The Consortium wanted control of it, at any cost. In 1794, a brilliant but ruthless mathematician named Dr. Corwin Blackwood rose to lead the Consortium. Unlike Sebastian Devereux, who believed America needed gentle shaping, Blackwood believed America had to be controlled scientifically through economics, psychology, and prediction. He called the ancient network the Foundation Lattice. To him, the chamber Elias had found wasn't just an ancient artifact. It was a probability engine, an unfathomably old mechanism for predicting human behavior on a continental scale. If the lattice could predict the future, Blackwood believed, it could also change it. And if he controlled it, he could turn America into the perfect engineered nation. There was only one problem. The lattice could only be activated by someone like Elias Granger, someone with a pattern sense mind capable of completing the circuit between consciousness and the shifting symbols, someone with a memory like fire, someone with instincts older than history. Elias was gone, but Blackwood was certain he could find another. And he did. Her name was Abigail. Yes, the same Abigail Elias had once loved. Because Abigail had long suspected the truth. The chamber was not unique. The markings Jonathan Hale found near Rhode Island years earlier were part of the same network. Abigail had quietly continued Elias's work for decades, gathering maps, symbols, rumors. By 1800, she had become the unintentional guardian of America's strangest secret. Blackwood wanted her knowledge. He sent men to capture her. She escaped. He burned her home. She vanished into the wilderness. It became a shadow war, one never recorded in any textbook. Abigail versus Blackwood, truth versus manipulation, a vanished journal versus an invisible empire. For 30 years, whispers of this invisible conflict flickered through the edges of American politics. Secrets buried just before the War of 1812, disappearances of surveyors in unexplored western lands, strange inscriptions found along the Mississippi River, mysterious fires destroying public archives, and always the same symbol carved somewhere out of sight, the eagle splitting into cracks. Then came the turning point. 1813, the Battle of the River Raisin. A soldier named Elias Granger, carrying the same surname Elias once bore, was gravely wounded in the chaos. Before dying, he handed his commanding officer a weathered scrap of paper. A map, hand-drawn, impossibly detailed. At the top, in fading ink, was a signature, Elias Granger, 1781. The map depicted a series of chambers stretching across the continent, from Virginia to Illinois, from the Carolinas to the Pacific coast, places no American had explored yet. Blackwood got the map. Abigail tried to steal it. The officer who carried it died mysteriously. His belongings vanished, and the invisible war entered its deadliest phase. Blackwood spent the next 20 years searching for the lattice's central node, the heart chamber, rumored to be buried somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains. Abigail spent the same 20 years destroying clues, intercepting agents, and recruiting young thinkers, gifted minds who could one day resist the consortium's control. But nothing prepared her for what came next. 1820, winter, deep in the Appalachians. Abigail found it, the heart chamber. It was massive, far larger than the Ohio chamber Elias found. Pillars 40 feet high, walls etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as though alive. A central dais shaped like an unfinished star. When Abigail touched it, the symbols shifted violently, more violent than anything Elias had recorded. On the map, engraved in the stone, the fracture had spread across the Great Plains and deep into the south. And she saw something else. A new mark appearing near the year 1860, a dark surge like a wound splitting the nation in two. She whispered, "A war, so great it tears the continent apart." But before she could document anything, Blackwood arrived. His men surrounded her,
Traps sealed the chamber. Blackwood stepped forward, triumphant. "At last," he said softly, "the mechanism awakens." But the chamber reacted violently to him. The symbols flickered. The torches carved in stone trembled. A low rumble rippled across the chamber floor. Abigail realized what Elias must have known all along. Only someone with the right mind, the right connection, could touch the lattice safely. Anyone else risked triggering a catastrophic response. Blackwood stepped onto the dais. The chamber screamed. Light burst from the walls. The pillars cracked. The fracture across the continental map began to glow like molten metal. Abigail, realizing what was happening, lunged forward and shoved Blackwood off the dais. He struck the ground hard. In the chaos, she activated a mechanism Elias had once described in his journal, a failsafe etched into the chamber walls. The stone floor split open. The chamber collapsed inward. Blackwood fell screaming into the abyss. Abigail barely escaped, emerging into the frozen mountains just as the earth swallowed the ancient structure forever. Blackwood was gone. The heart chamber was buried. But the fracture on the map, the future Elias feared, was already set into motion. And Abigail, now old, exhausted, and hunted by the remnants of the consortium, wrote a final note in her journal. "I have done all I can. The next keeper must be born after me. Let them find these clues. Let them find the truth. The fracture is coming, and only